team that we have a much bigger opportunity against. But you also have T1 to look back on, and I'm bringing up the stats here, and well, my stats aren't loading because it says we don't have any data for this search, but I know damn well I do. So whilst that reloads, let's jump into the bans, and at least we can break down the plethora of information we have on this map for FAV, especially when it comes to bans. And usually they'll get rid of a Monty or a Habana. Today they say Nomad is no-go.
I am very surprised that we're seeing a Nomad ban away. Definitely not one of the more common bans on this map. We'll see things like the Thatcher or a Hard Breacher or two, or sometimes two taken away on the map. But no, Nomad and Thatcher are going to be the ones that we see coming out. Very standard more towards the second, I imagine, if you're looking towards, say, a Mutant Mozzie defense somewhere upstairs or whatever it may be. MIRA coming through as the next one. No huge surprise there. We see a lot of very strong MIRA holds, especially on the downstairs, or sometimes teams extending upstairs to go for vertical holds. So not surprised to see that one taken away either. And the final one, Jess, is going to be the Wamai.
I wonder if that's a bit of a target ban, because what I've seen from FAV is that they do like to shake up their defensive bans a bit. Remember, we saw the Warden, we saw the Clash. I mean, now we're seeing a Wamai. They don't really stick to the same flavor, the same recipe. They keep it fresh, and I don't mind that. For a team that wants to counter another team in their defensive bans, especially if the other team gets rid of the MIRA for you, cool, no problems. You get a bit of freedom there. So I don't mind it. I think it looks good. What doesn't bode well, I think, is T1 starting on their attack, giving FAV the bit of a momentum on their defense. Should they be as defender-sided, as the stats are telling me? When they since September, they've won 72% of all of their defensive rounds on the side of FAV. That's pretty good.
They have looked good there. I think their attacks, and it seems to be the theme in APAC. Quite interesting now I think about it, because a lot of teams in Europe, and when I say a lot, I'm mainly thinking of G2, to be completely honest, Na'Vi as well. Attacks are looking really good right now. It's where teams look stronger than rather than on the defense. Over here, I think it's almost a total reverse to last year when we said, you know, APAC attack, they love the aggression. Now it's starting to look like teams are a lot more comfortable on the defensive side of things. So for FAV, not at all surprised to hear that's the stat coming through. Does beg questions of, though, when does the attack then start to come up to match the defense? Otherwise, you can win all the attacking, all the defensive rounds you want. If you can't win an attack, as we saw in the last match, CAG took every single defensive round, absolutely nothing left with the other side. It can really start to bite you when you start looking at results.
Well, we will get into the very first round here of T1 going up against FAV. I don't think this is a very known quantity here for T1. I mean, FAV, Japanese team, wins. You're not going up against each other in nationals. And of course, T1, this is a brand new roster for the most part. So for me, I don't think there's going to be too much they know other than VOD reviews. And mind you, they have a player coach at the moment. That's their support staff. Someone who both plays, which is in the side of Revy, and he also coaches. So how much time does he really have outside of playing in the scrims, you know, working on mistakes, working with the team? It's a lot of pressure on one person, but nevertheless, don't want to put too much pressure on Revy. We know he's been working towards being the best player and coach he can be. And they're going to have to make their ingress over towards Attic. Revy's going to drone it out for them, speaking of the man himself. But DEFUSER is angled over towards that sort of armory area. So I think they're going to do a dual pinch open.
It's a very common sort of setup for this site, I think, is where you have someone looking to come into Master rather than Armory. I mean, Armory, yes, there is the Zofia on rotate there, maybe hoping that someone's going to come rotating back up Armory stairs, but Master normally becomes the point of ingress. You get the walk-in wardrobe wall open. You look for a plant inside a game once you have control of Attic, so you're expecting to see resistance here coming either inside of game room or at the very top or at the bottom side, sorry, of Attic. 11 starting to now crack walk his way through, as any good Zofia player should do normally. It's an Ash, but you'll take a Zofia. In fact, it's Typon getting a kill inside a trophy, so slight mistiming coming out where he can't step forward, but ultimately that becomes down to the smoke coming out of K-Razor. Smart defensive play coming out of FAV secures from the opening kill.
A beautiful bit of cohesion there, and oh, good game sense from 11. He'll flick over towards that C4 being put from Shin underneath that armory exit, and well, he does get a little bit of a dink onto Shin, and he gets dinked back. I think that's a good trade for trade on bullets there, but I think that's done more damage to the side of FAV here because they know someone is all the way downstairs. But we've got to point out the elephant in the room, or rather the shield inside of Trophy. That got destroyed, but it didn't deter the Jaeger anymore. They still made that their power position. We don't see a lot of teams do that these days, but they put a lot of their ADSs, a lot of their utility towards it, so I'm worried. Do they have enough left to work with on site? At Afro's in a key power position, so is number 2. But I mean, Shin got back to side, so really has anything been lost?
Getting the walls opened up here instead of walking, as mentioned earlier on. I think it gets busted out. Did they just break it off? I think they did, potentially from below. Either way, it's going to get denied off. In fact, no, it was an impact. That would have been the second one that just got thrown out. Afro going aggression with the swing, brings down the diffuser, and the ace gets contested from below by the Buck, who's been holding inside the classroom for a while, but no kill finished off. Replica comes in for a pinch at the same time. They do manage to find Afro, but at what cost is the question? 11 going huge on the push in himself here. They flipped the round on its head. T1 in a 2 versus 2. Revy holding the long angle, being contested, but hasn't got to worry. Shin finds the kill. 11 to take 4 kills and close the round out for them in the post plan. Swings round, but Shin's ready with the pistol. They'll put that one to bed, but my God, is that going to give FAV a rude awakening with what 11 just did?
Well, 11 was the only positively rated player, so are we really surprised that he's going to be the big hitter here for T1? Probably not. Mind you, the thought process to go, okay, I need to get both of these kills and then go straight for default plant next to foosball table, beautiful. Not only does he have the capability to understand that he needed to make that hero play, but he also focused on the objective whilst there was still time at hand. Really good game sense, really good showing from 11. We know the kind of player he can be, especially back when he was with Scars. But for now, that settles the round here for FAV. They started off with a man advantage. They ended it with, a pretty easy, I think maybe 11 was on 15 HP maximum. So it was going to be an uphill battle for him either way. But that was a close one, nevertheless. I think had those couple of kills and had maybe FAV not got so energetic towards the end there and thrown bodies at 11, it would have come out as a much more dominant win. This round, however, they're going to go down to the bottom floor. They're going to bring the Echo in hand, give them a little bit more intel to work with. Shin's going to bring that Valkyrie as well. There's a lot of intel they're going to be working with. There's no shotgun on the Ella, so we're not going to get that usual A-pack, a shotgun backstairs where you have to contest 3 different ADSs and a clash. That's why it's been banned. Rather, it hasn't been banned in this particular match. They could have taken it as well, but they're not going to do it. I think that's the C9 special. The shotgun Ella with the clash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there are a few teams that used to run that in history. I mean, I think we were talking about it yesterday and Monday, actually. All the days blur into one. Monday over in Europe when we were on Clubhouse and we saw Kavana ban away the clash, we were saying, some teams, and we have seen multiple, run things like the Ella playing inside a secret with a clash inside of logistics. That has been a setup a few teams have employed, and you will see it roll across to other maps from time to time. As you observe, though, isn't quite going to be the setup here. Obviously not on the same map either way, but not playing behind the sort of setup that you're thinking of. What we are seeing, though, is number 2 stepping off a mute, something that he normally plays pretty much all the time. And here is getting to go out on the roam. So maybe a sign of a couple of changes coming in here where they're saying to him, look, you're a bit of a fragger. Get out there and make stuff happen for us. You've also got Typon and Afro in a similar role and leaving more towards Shin and K-Razor to be on those more supportive backline roles.
Well, the problem could be for roamers if they are all alone and they don't have pinch pressure with them, things go downhill very quickly. That's why number 2 is going to have to do the left, right, and tap dance around the attic stairs, of course. They know exactly where he is, but they want him to come to them, and come to them he will. Beautiful headshot with a burst, a very high fire rate on that gun, and how Typon didn't win that is beyond me. It's like 11 has been blessed from round 1.
Still carrying over some momentum where he felt cheated in the post plant, no doubt. They have cleared out Big Tower there, but with number 2 finding that first kill, I thought for a second there's no way they're about to hold them up here for a solid 2 minutes or so and find a couple of kills in the process. Thankfully, action is taken. They get the shutdowns. 4 versus 3 now for T1 with about a minute and a half left to play. That is tons of time to make an execute happen here. Let's not throw this one away, boys.
Well, the midi hatch will get popped open, and a lot of people do usually try and challenge onto blue, which is where I believe they should push down next. Sometimes if pillar's free, you could just completely give up on it, do a box drop with a flash, which you can see them prepping for now. 11, I think he sent out a concussion there. I didn't quite see that one, but either way, no, he didn't. It was just some of those Grismont going off, confirming that the box drop did happen. Is that a supernova in the hand of K-Razor there? That could do serious damage in close range, but he pulls out the bearing instead, and this is 60 seconds that they've got left to play with here, and that is so much time. Now they've opened up the long angle from pillar as well.
It's like we said, yeah, a minute and a half is a lot of time to play with, but it's balanced out into a 3 versus 3. Not a spot you want to be in, but Plant is going down. They still have the Echo, but it's in the wrong place. They're going to have to C4 or peek, and peek they do. Revy picks up a second kill in the round, 2 versus 2, but the Plant didn't get stuck. 30 seconds to play with here, and Revy's trying to make it happen. It's a 3K for the coach standing, doing work for them in this round. Shin by himself has got it all to do. Has the impacts, no C4. That's why we haven't seen any come singing. Swings onto Revy, but Revy secures a 4K in the round. That's how a coach goes big.
I have to really point this out about Revy, is that last season when he was standing in and out, it was like a huge roller coaster ride. Sometimes Revy would be in, sometimes he wouldn't be in. I mean, it must have been an absolute whiplash nightmare for him. He was on support roles. He was on the Clash. He was on the Monty. He was on roles that just were not frag heavy whatsoever. He comes into stage 1 of this year, and I have seen him on Jackal. I have seen him on Buck. I've seen him on multiple, flex fragging operators that I wouldn't expect someone who we originally considered not very mechanically skilled to play on. But holy jeez, has he shown up? And I am really impressed by what he's putting on the board, because someone who doesn't necessarily train to be a player has now been thrust into the deep end, and he's keeping himself afloat just quite fine.
He's put up a Hyperino, Jess, is the way to look at it. Arguably the best rated player you're ever going to see in EUL, for those who don't know. Stepped in for Chaos as their coach, and they needed him one play day. And who was it they beat? They played against, it was Vitality, I think it was, on Villa, and he absolutely slapped them off the park on things like the Maestro. Had an absolute field day, got his name in the history books, can't complain. Revy looking to take some inspiration from that one, I think, albeit over a much longer time period. And I remember speaking to him a little bit last year, actually. Hybrid also was on the team at the time with Scars, and what really pains me is looking back at Scars. Look at what Yas is doing, for example, for down 1 right now. He's unbelievable. 11, performing incredibly. And Revy, sure, inconsistent, but having good rounds like that. They had a lot of tools on that team that were all aligned together and doing so well, but could never quite produce the results. I'm really glad to see the fragments of that team are now starting to really deliver on other teams, and fair play to them after a really tough last year.
Well, no one's momentum was broken. In fact, it may have just reinvigorated several of these players, 11 being one of them, but now on the opposite side of the coin. 30 seconds has elapsed, and I'm seeing a pretty damn similar setup to what I saw last round, which T1 was able to snag. So they'll go back, they'll try and repeat it, but this time they will try not to repeat those mistakes. And as a FAV sort of better on this particular game, I'm sort of betting alongside Ace that FAV will walk away with the win. You're hoping that they can bring something back, change something here. And the attackers are also changing just a little bit of how they push in towards blue. This shield will stay up if it's only an Ashe aggressing, unless they use all 3 of their Ashe charges, because there are a couple of ADSs to contend with, a shield and a carbine right behind it.
I think seeing some of these grenades down from the Buck, for example, it is going to be really hard to do, but the drone has done all the work the Ashe needs. Don't really think you can cheat this one with the reduced range now. You're probably going to find that you're not able to destroy the shield from as far away, i.e. just in the doorway before you start landing into those ADSs. But Yeti with a god shot onto Typon. Forget about the shield. It's useless if there's no player sat behind it. And like that, he's saying, I don't need utility. I can just kill the guy.
And then you saw Shin on the mute. He just completely reinforced it off. He went, oop, I lost that position really quick. I'm going to reinforce it off. I am not messing with blue, because after a beautiful headshot over the shield with an elevated position, that is not a monster you want to be dealing with. Last time they threw Ace charges on that singular long wall over towards Pillar. Now I believe it had a bit of electrification or a mute jammer on it, so they couldn't open it up with an Ace charge. And as a result, now they have to Maverick it. They will pay a lot of the price, but that was a C4 that came out, and now they have none left. So all they're going to have to rely on now is the Yokai drones or a beautiful headshot from Freezer from Afro.
Yeah, or just clicking heads. As so often the game can come down to when all the utility has been expended. That's what it's turning into here, with kills going left, right, and center. 11 stepping up again, clearly aiming for 11 in no time at all. He's on 6 so far, 3 in the round, and now they're going for the plant, with number 2 being the only one left alive. They've got the angle. It's Revy once again to strike true. T1 looking pretty good on these attacks so far, Jess. Yes, scrappy at a couple of points, but you can see they've got some bites in their play today.
I wonder what it is for T1 in that they're looking so much more confident in this particular matchup than last time. I mean, not even just the last match. Think back to play day one. A lot of us gave, I guess, the teams a lot of wiggle room because it was play day one. Every team still trying to get back in the groove of competitive play. Some of these teams, T1 in great example, have not really faced up as an entire squad against tier one teams in a very long time, you know, either as a squad or individually. Some of them are rookies straight in. There was a lot of questions I had about them. My problem is now, can they keep up this momentum, or is this just one of those things where FAV are overextending? They've fallen back into that trap and that weakness of where they do overextend on their defense, and then they have to try and make that up in their attacking half.
It does kind of start asking the question early on with those 2 rounds. So does this force this into being a maybe game for T1? Because I already said it once, like, teams are looking good defensively. On the attacks, less so. If a team starts good on the attack and then knows they're switching over to the defense, the onus goes onto that team that should have a massive advantage in that first half to produce a miracle in the second. And for FAV, it's where they've been met with aggression and teams that are committed to getting done what needs to be done in a orderly fashion, that's when they struggled, I think, in the last couple of weeks. Again, Coastline's the one that I always pull back to when I say a statement like that. And think about the game versus Cyclops. Cyclops were just meeting them at every door and every window. So if T1 bring the same heat on their defense as they are so far on the attack, will FAV be able to adapt?
I mean, this game has already been full of surprises. I will say T1 looks worlds apart from what the performance they put on last week. So I do want to give them a little bit of a thumbs up to say, yeah, you're working on your progress here, and it's been quite quick, and that's a hard thing to do when you're going into super weeks as well. Maybe I can give a little bit of that room and that forethought to FAV as well, because if I look at their stats here, Des, I am worried. They win less than a quarter of their attacks on this map at any one given time. Ever. So they're going to have to pick it up magically.
They would have to, indeed. And I'm looking across the T1, to be fair, and thinking, as much as we're heaping praise on them here and getting excited, let's not forget it's coming down to 2 players doing a lot of work. 11 with multi-kills in almost every single round so far, except round number 2. Because guess what? It was Revy with a 4K that transformed that round. But you can feel the impact of these 2 players. My question always comes down to, when you lose 11 early on, what happens next? Is that when you see FAV step up? We'll only find out by going through the second quarter of the round or of the game so far. Another 3 rounds to repeat what we saw back in the first 3. As in terms of how it's setting up, it feels like FAV have at least reined in the aggression a little bit on the roam, aren't looking to get too cheeky and get out there being aggression. Number 2, stepping back over to playing on the Valkyrie rather than the Ella in this case, is that utility. Sorry, the utility, information. That's one of the things they seem to be missing out on in their mind.
But they're also going to be missing out on Yeti as he falls to the headshot of Typon. Good shot there. And of course, the biggest problem now and the biggest question I have is, why is no one going below? That's why. Because you're going to get your head taken cleanly off by Afro, who is looking straight down at the vertical. No! How many victims will Afro take with this one vertical hole alone? It looks like he'll take Revy as well. And they're peeking unnecessarily. We spoke about this last round, Des. Don't be throwing bodies over towards T1, because all of a sudden that man or several man advantage you had will dwindle very quickly.
You can just sit and wait here. I mean, this could have been 2 kills for 11 and bring things down to a 3 versus 2, just a couple of seconds or a couple of milliseconds too slow, but gets it out a bit later. On to number 2. Typon swings for the trade, and now it's all down to Vamos by himself. Gets the down. It's a 1 versus 2. Everyone is one shot. Maybe Afro arguably based on distance, but either way, a shot from either party can close this round out pretty quickly. They've got a great crossfire setup, though. Can't go for one without being shot by the other. Good close from FAV after a round of swings and peaks. Didn't look like it was going to go their way.
Yeah, you're right. Probably the most impressive thing there was, okay, they did lose a player who is outwardly peeking behind bunk towards double window. Unnecessary. Smoke peeking over towards trophy. Unnecessary. I feel like the key word here is unnecessary for the side of FAV. They cleaned it up at the end with a nice little crossfire. Even if one had died, you would have had to flick, light speed in that kind of distance to be able to go back over and look towards the pig and attic area and get the second kill. So great crossfire. Questionable plays came off the back of the Malusi there, who had that vertical. And mind you, that vertical's open for impact tricking. It's not necessarily open to be able to frag out onto the members of T1. Why they didn't go below earlier, deal with what they knew would be an electrification, raises questions in my mind that they they can't deal with simplistic utility usage that is being employed by FAV, which could be a bit of a problem as we now go over to kitchen, and they won't do the meeting. They'll instead go over to dining. And whether or not they do a small tower hold with this Frost, this has been popularized. We saw this in EU as well, and they've sort of taken it over as their own here. This could be really hard to deal with if you don't deal with utility properly.
This is absolutely after watching Leon's 4K from this spot the other day, I think, in EU. In a spot where he was holding behind a shield and tower, found the 2K, pushed down the stairs, got a further 2K, was going for the ace, did die out in the very end to the last man. But either way, had done the work, I think. And you might start to see this becoming incredibly more popular as time goes by. I think last year we saw a couple of teams playing with the Frost around there, but now it feels like there's a much more established setup in there that teams are really starting to play behind and commit utility to.
And why wouldn't you? Frost is a great operator. You saw that ITA ripping through the showers wall. You get to make rotate. You've got one of the most powerful SMGs on the defense. And I mean, just overall, the kit is amazing. You get a shield for the play too. So there is so much going for Frost as an operator that why not? Even if the Frost map managed to get a DBNO, even better. That's just a little bonus on top. Nevertheless, speaking about on top, Yeti makes his quick entrance with a quick breach through into Armory. He wants to get that top floor control. He's got breaching charges in hand. He wants verticals above kitchen. That's his goal here.
They're just wanting to ignore small tower at this point and say, forget about pushing from the west. Let's do the standard top floor take, use that vertical control of kitchen to then go for a plant, likely via green or via dropping the hatch or security, whatever stance they try and take. Getting this side cleared out is #1 priority. And speaking of #1, there is a #2 sat inside of kids waiting, C4 in hand. Imagine he wants to get himself back down the hatch as he has now done, given he has that C4 in hand. Now they can start looking to play for the deny from below once T1 try and assume control.
We've pretty much reached the exact halfway mark. Is this a good indicator of getting those verticals opened up? Do they have the right amount of time under their hands to deal with this? Sure. My problem is, where are they going to plan? Where is the point of objective play? Because what they need to be focused on is making sure that wherever they open up the verticals is where they get the plant down, they have the correct cover and rotate cut. They're using this yokai exactly as we saw last game for intel. And I like that teams are using the yokais that way, especially their initial yokai. Keep your secondary for the plant denial. And it's really wasting a lot of the attacker's time.
Timing is everything. We always say it. Yeti wasting no time in stepping forward and bringing down #2. The man who's been running around this map like nuts. Trades going back and forth. Shin almost finding a second on the swing out, but Yeti manages to cross into Zulu, no problem. A little bit lucky to be alive here. The question is, what damage can he do with a second chance? It's 11 onto Afro. The answer is given. Yeti is going to do nothing with a second chance, but Shin on a big flank. They knew he was on Armory stairs, and he still managed to step up and do tons of damage. Plants going down. Vamos is alone. There is a smoke coming out, and they know they're in a 1 versus 3. They will act with the retaking ground upstairs. Fav close things out and put themselves into the lead.
The biggest problem for T1 in that round was that not only did they lose track of the flank, and okay, there was a drone downstairs. We do have to highlight the fact that they did bring some intel. They knew he was there. They'd spot him out. The calls would have come out, but they lost top floor in that point. They managed to have a retake happen to them. They managed to have a flank happen right behind them, even when they had the intel. There's so much questionable play there from a team that we really just hyped up, which is a shame. We want to talk well about T1 as a team, especially as an organization coming into our great game. My problem is that you can't be that inconsistent from one round to the next. You're showing me two completely different sides of you. That is a scary function for a team who wants to do well in this league.
So I think you sit here with some comfort as T1 knowing, okay, we've got the 2-round padding. It's okay. There's time for us to make our defenses work. And even if it goes 4-2, hey, this season, there's overtime. It's not going to be the end of the world, although it does feel like with those last 2 rounds going the way of Fav, like they're slowly starting to warm back into this one. But let's see how this downstairs defense goes. They have failed it twice so far. Both of those rounds being taken by T1. Revy with the 4K in round 2, and then moving into round number 3, it was 11 walking away with the 3K. They have been dominated by individual players in these rounds, and that's what I think we need to see stop, is giving yourself a position where you're not peaking solo, where you're not being just mown down by one player walking through your team, play as a team, play a little more conservatively, use the utility you've got, because you've got a Clash, you've got the Echo, you've got the Malusis, you've got the Grishmot, you've got everything on side that you need to slow down the attackers here. Play with the utility.
Oh, absolutely. And I did, theory craft earlier on that maybe they would bring that Clash, especially for backstairs and over towards that pillar location. Maybe even give a little bit of a nice bit of intel over towards the blue double doors. Should that push happen there yet again? Last time, you didn't really need to. They just reinforced it up after a bit of a nice pixel peek over the shield. But this Clash will be a problem. The only player on the side of T1 that could theoretically deal with it is the concussions of the Zofia to knock back that shield. But that is time telling. Of course, the Clash could wait and bide their time on site. I think that's exactly what they'll do as they start using impacts towards backstairs. 1 minute has elapsed and it's been probably one of the quietest rounds this early on. And Afro will be probably the first player to deal with this backstairs. He's got a nice little ADS tucked around the corner as well. I hope they're aware of it, because that could really save multiple people's lives, especially the Clash.
I mean, the Clash can be so instrumental. We keep on speaking about it. Is that combo we've spoken about a good few times over, but the time she can waste later in the round can be ludicrous. But T1 have had probably about a minute and a half left in the majority of these rounds when it comes to starting to look towards the site. Their own game hasn't been all that troubling or puzzling coming out of FAV, and when you can hard drop in like this and find a kill, it's definitely not too bad. They get the one, but instantly down. 11 swings for number 2 and brings him down at the same time. Replica is injured, down but not out. Could be resuscitated and brought back to the team to keep it as a 5 versus 3. But the rest of the team, no doubt, wondering now, where's everyone else? You've got Shin standing nice and close and just letting them know, yes, he's down. They're looking for the res. Can we disrupt on this one? Doesn't want to step back up, and they will get him back on his feet. 5 versus 3. Clash and Echo still remain, so they can play this more disruption-based game. But with 50 seconds on the clock, Jess, it worries me a little.
They used their last concussion to knock Shin down to about 15 HP. What a shame, because that was their last opportunity with that knockback. Now, the only thing they have is possibly maybe some grenade radius. I mean, what do you really have to work with here to be able to get them back off their feet? No grenades left for Replica. So now as they knock back one more time, last missed opportunity there, and the shield will stay. Shin, barely any life to his name, and that means he will stay for the last 20 seconds as they desperately attempt another plant.
And in goes Shin now. He should be able to go and step against this small wall to the north and do some kind of disruption play here. But the Echo's gone down as well. Shin's all alone. We all know how this happens out. When you are alone with the shield, you get bullied. And bullied they will. 11, I believe, confirming out with a 3 or a 4K in that round. What is it with T1 and attacking this downstairs site that FAV just cannot handle?
It's troublesome, isn't it? Because you only have a few, what I want to say, viable sites to pick from, right? Especially in a tiered system. So you can turn around and say, top floor is our best site statistically. We also prefer it as a site, defensively. Let's go back there as much as we can. But once you win it, you really only have 2 other sites to pick from, because most teams will value either the dining and kitchen or the kitchen and meeting. There's rarely a lot of teams around the world that are proficient at both of them. So you really only have 2 other sites to pick from. You're meant to be able to play downstairs appropriately, but it just seems like T1, when it comes to the bottom floor site and they're on attack, they know exactly how to answer FAV. But things are all clear. They're all 3 apiece, and now they get to essentially start off again, but this time T1 is on their defense as the rounds, or the sides switch rather, and doesn't bode well for FAV. That's the thing. What I say, less than a quarter of the time they win their attacks on this map, something's got to change.
I mentioned about the difficulty teams. FAV, definitely in the stats, as you were alluding to earlier on, show that attacks have been a real battle lately. I mean, T1 could just go hyper-aggressive in the style that we saw out of Cyclops back in week 1 and really give FAV a thing or two to think about. Their strategy in round number 7 doesn't appear to be that way, though. They're going much more for a hunkered-down approach, playing behind 3 C4s and looking towards the likes of the Kaid, the Malusi, the Goyo, and saying, come and try and get us, boys, because we're going to make this rough for you.
Something
Like the zero,
also
by the way.
Yeah, something to also know, there was 2 things I want to bring up. 1, lots of vertical holes being made for the default plant. I love to see a team that does that. We see that a lot in EUL, unfortunately. Not a lot of teams act upon it, even though they open it up in prep phase. Always a questionable one for me. That's the one I'm looking for, where Revy's down below, yet he's also playing over towards kitchen. But the 0, How are they going to utilize the Zero to best effect? Is it for flank hold? Is it gaining, information? Are they going to zoom it through a reinforcement and try and pop off one of those electric claws because you get one zap per camera? I mean, there's a lot you could do. I want to see how they use it.
I think a couple of people, I'm keen to get your thoughts on it, actually. There's quite a few on Twitter who are going around saying, oh, everyone is sleeping on Zero. Do you think they are, or do you think he's just not really going to be that effective long term?
I think it depends on the map. Like a map like Cafe, I have seen cameras spread all over the map that have given such long lines of sight. They've gone unspotted because they were done early on in the round before, players decide to flank or move over towards the stairs. I think on certain maps they can be great. On a smaller map like Oregon, you should be able to hear it. You should be quite aware of it, and you should be able to see it as well. So I don't think, for an intel perspective, it's going to be quite as great. But on other bigger maps, sure. Yeah, I can see the intonation that people are having there about Zero.
I think especially when it is frags, it was a very different conversation. People were very excited about him then. And imagine now if you had the Zero on side with the ER and the amount of utility and information you're gathering from that, plus frags, plus the map with frags, you just see so many teams running that near consistently. So it does make sense that it's been stripped away. But there's the intel they're looking for underneath to try and get rid, I imagine, of one of the Kite Electro claws. Can you see it?
No, so he'll have to reverse it. So what Shin's trying to do is ask his teammate to get Vamos's attention, because if they do, that's what they're doing with this. He'll reverse the camera up through the floor, look for the electric claw and shoot it. But it needs to be timed almost perfectly. So that's why he hasn't done it yet. He needs to get Vamos's attention away from that camera.
Oh, well, there's your answer. I think he might have just accidentally kind of blown out the camera at the same time, as that was the spot, I think, where he drops it in. So not going to be too much use for them anymore. Maybe a bit of coordination to come there. Distract him, but don't blow out the floor. Got it, blow out the floor. Gone and done just that. Replica's having a little bit of a fiery time going on in the back of kids. And finally, we see the first death come through with 30 seconds left to play. Timing for T1 was great in the first half. Again, 90 seconds left or so at execute time. But FAV, not so hot, but they catch two on the retreat away. They tried to escape and have caught them on the back of this one. They just flawless round T1 out of nowhere. After it looked like T1 might be able to hold on and do some wonders, FAV turn up the heat and take the rounds.
Alrighty, teams. Well, you know what my Twitter is, @JessGoat. If you guys want to head into my DMs and beg me to cast a curse or cast a bless you, I am doing it on the daily here on the broadcast, okay? Every time I talk trash. We don't want to talk about money here. That's another conversation. It's all right. I might just do it out of goodwill. Oh, you might be interested. No one can bless you, Des. Have you seen you? Like, it's impossible.
Well, no, see, I've got a theory, right? I am cursed as high hell. We know how my predictions go. So if I can pay you to, cast a curse me whilst I'm already cursed, do I then become blessed as a result? Is it the reverse?
I mean, sure, you can't go much more into negative. Negative times a negative, I guess, just becomes a positive, no?
Exactly, Jess. This is why I cast with you.
I don't know what you mean, but I will nod in agreement.
You have been very nice lately.
Thank you. I have been trying because, ladies and gentlemen, when you have to cast with a man like Des, it just gets abysmally boring. So you have to do something. You have to try and jazz up so that you can come to work and not be absolutely bored out of your brain every day. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Don't make me bring up the clip of that execute the other day when the 4K into a 2K, and I was like, Jess, scream! Look what's going on!
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a color caster who was originally an analyst who has done so for a mere year of my life. I would like some slack cut. Nevertheless, I am not cutting slack.
We'll make a play-by-play out of you. Don't you worry. Let's get into round 8.
Mate, quadruple threat? Are you kidding me? Oh, goddamn. All right, go ahead. Play-by-play.
This is play-by-play. This is your time to talk. We break our rounds down, you see, and this is the time when the colour talks and tells people with lesser brains like me what's going on.
I'm glad you admitted it, and something else I really have to admit is that a roaming Goyo is not particularly the operator on the defensive side I would expect to be roaming. I expect 11 on the Mozzie, I expect Yeti on the Jaeger, and I also don't expect the Smoke to be so aggressively up on the window, risking their life early on. They're already in? Is this the play-by-play's turn?
This is where you go hype, Jess, because number 2's just walked into sight and killed 2 people. A third is down. Nades are singing in. They might just have another flawless round coming out here in no time at all. I say that, and it is cursed. 11 bringing down Typon, but the Defuser has gone down in no time at all. FAV really trying to speed run this attack, it feels. With that Defuser down, Replica has got 20 seconds to kill 3 and get the defuse off. The odds are almost impossible, given that he currently only has 3 kills across the 7 or 8 rounds in this game. Having a bit of a look around, has no idea that someone's laid down to his right-hand side. FAV win it again off the back of, dare I say, another giga explosive, aggressive play, akin to what we saw out of P4 the other day in EUL.
You know, my biggest indication that a team has taken everyone by surprise, and I mean everyone, the defenders, the talent team, the viewers, is when Medics just spots it as it's happening. Medics is a brilliant observer. I would say he has some of the best sort of game sense alongside myself, and that's not to blow my own ego, but you can generally tell where a round is going just before it happens. But Medics only snap to it as it happened, and that is how quick FAV were in getting that attack in. If Medics can't catch it, then they are zooming into side.
I wish I knew what he just said then.
He said he was caught with his pants down, and that's what our observer said. That's not what I said. That's Medics' word straight into our ears, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm just quoting what someone else said. Guilty and absolved of blame or of any kind of being complicit in not really questionable words. I think I said it the other day, actually, in the middle of a fight. So they've had their pants down. Yeah, well, I screamed it. That's probably why you didn't hear it very well. Too busy blowing your eardrums out.
True. I've enjoyed your play-by-play and your hype casting, so keep it up. No one wants you to stop.
It's one of those awkward things where my back room, like, it's like 20 degrees outside. I've got a big blackout blind, and the room still turns into a furnace. So I'm just like, I'm sweaty, the game's exciting, let's just shout and get it all out, have a real good time, and we do. And then we get some really hype plays to back it up. I keep on saying the season has been excellent so far. And I love how we've seen, again, I spoke about it earlier on in APAC, it's been a total switch where teams originally were excellent on attack and now really good on defense. And we're starting to see teams rebuild their attacking style. FAV apparently are finding a wonderful way of doing it in at least this half because they're 2 rounds up. And now they're going to go super exciting because there's a rush. There's a man behind the shield. He finds one. It's instantly traded. That means no one can reinforce the wall. They can look into supply 3 versus 3. And there's only 3 left on the defensive side, looking out towards the west alignment of the building rather than out towards the east where FAV are gearing themselves up. Another frag comes singing through, getting rid of any utility present, but they don't know about Replica hanging out to the left-hand side, goes for a peek, nothing to be found. I'm out of breath on this one. 2 C4s remaining already with the Moss and the Goyo, so there is some denial left. And hopefully now with FAV, again, trying to speedrun their attacking half here. We're only 55 seconds into the round, Jess, and it has already gone absolutely crazy. At least now it should breathe a little bit as there are 3 frags and 2 C4s remaining.
Well, that particular rush into bunker, it worked wholeheartedly. Unfortunately, they've been stalled out now, and that's a beautiful nade. Oh, no. But the bounce, as if the luck is in complete side of 11, will go over towards E-Box. They're going to rain out a lot of this utility over to Pillar. Do they think someone's playing Harry Potter still? Because they're not. That's where the drone last spotted them. But a really well-positioned 11 will take the head cleanly off of number 2. And speaking of 2, there were only 2, and 11, well, he'll make it far less.
Just gross how much work he's doing by himself here. Number 2 has got to feel like he's his arch nemesis in this game. Just keeps on coming across him, and 11 keeps on taking heads. 16 and 5 in 8.5, 9 rounds, whatever you want to call it. There's only 1 guy on the other side still to kill, but it is Afro's also been having a game himself. He's got to win his ones, mind you, and I imagine looking at where the lineup of these players is, there's a bit of a crossfire going. Probably wants to push an alternative angle, look down the corridor. I think that's maybe the best idea. Take the challenge onto the default spot, because if you go pushing into this doorway, they've got you in a bit of a crossfire. 1 has backed away Matt down towards the rotate. C4 comes out though. 11 hasn't even got a shoot, makes it a 4K in the round. 11 is unstoppable. Like, it's not even to turn around, and I do not like doing this as an analyst or even just a viewer as a whole. I hate putting an entire win. Let's say they bring this back or they bring it to overtime, manage to score themselves at least 1 point. I really don't like putting that on one player. I think we kind of did that a little bit back in the EUL broadcast about Citizen and Virtue, even to a little point. We kind of put a lot of the emphasis on 30
them.
30 kills on one map.
Right. But this one, even 20 times, I feel 20 times stronger that this entire T1 roster in this particular map and matchup here against FAV is being carried. Like literally carried by 11 alone. It's not always about KD. I will say that Revy had a couple of really good rounds in the first half on attack, but I will say confidently 17 kills, 5 deaths, that there is impact in there whether you want to believe it or not, and it is intense impact.
I mean, the way you can look at this is look at the kind of scorings across the rounds. Look at the deaths, for example. Yeti, Replica, Vamos, 8, 8, 9 deaths. That means that consistently, with 11 only being on 5, he has been the last one left alive in the round and winning rounds over for them to keep them competitive at 4 and 5 scoreline, right? I'm completely with you. We spoke about Citizen and Virtue. We hyped them up. That doesn't mean no one else was doing their role. They absolutely were. Just those two were completely popping off and carrying them over the finish line. Here today, again, not to take a massive dump on the other players and say you're doing nothing, but it is 11 that's the last man left alive or is the one that's stepping forward and picking up 3 or 4 kills in a round to make sure they get over the finish line. So don't worry, Jess, I'll back you on this one.
Well, that's a first, and I'll take that. It's a little bit of a win. No, you are right. Just had to take a jab. Take a jab whenever I can take a jab.
Take a swipe.
Take a swipe.
Because you won't be going to Paris feeling good about it. I'll be coming there to shave your eyebrows while you sleep.
Well, someone record that because that was definitely a live on air threat to my eyebrows, and I take that very personally. You know what else I take personally? Stop at 11.
11 again.
I take it personally that he is able to do this and walk away with a brutal rating at the end. You know what? He's had so much impact that the MVP at the end, even if his team loses, will be him.
And it's on to Afro at that as well. Again, one of the big players coming out for FAV so far today. I think I always ask this every time it comes around to someone getting anywhere near 20 kills. What is the online tier 1 kill record on a map? Do we know?
23.
23?
Is it 23? 23 from OGA?
That was LAN, so I won't include that.
Oh, what? My man's, listen, there's so many things I have to clip from this particular map. The things that have come out of your mouth. I can't even speak English. You have absolutely melted my brain with that comment to say LAN doesn't count. Boy, LAN counts
that's
more
why,
than
because
online.
I said online. No, I know, but that's why I'm saying online, because people get very upset if you say someone's got the kill record and well, it's not at LAN, therefore it doesn't count. That's why I'm saying let's focus just online.
We'll have to
Intero said that actually on Twitter. That's why.
Well, there you go. Intero knows all. Replica will go down as we're talking absolute smack in all of your ears. K-Razor will take out Revy. This is a very, very convincing round so far here. They've still got 64 seconds to work with it. No! The big hitter for T1 goes down. No more impact can he have before surely this will propel FAV into a match point here as they're sitting on 5 rounds. Only one more needed to get to the 6th, and then 7th becomes a win.
You can see this kind of diagonally orientated line just sweeping from left to right across the map here for FAV. They've got the lineup ready. They've got the aggression ready. They're now looking for these kind of angles that will come to a point on the site to go for a plant. And here they step. They've got the showers control. They've got the plant going down. It's a wonderful smoke, but it's not connecting onto K-Razor. Instead, it's hitting Typon, who's playing behind him. They should be able to get away with it, but Vamos steps up and brings down K-Razor. A kill comes in from number 2 behind. It looks like FAV will be able to swing this round back their way, as it looks like in a 2 versus 1. Vamos should not be able to pull this off, and pull it off he shall not. FAV closed the round, moved to match point. Can there be anything extra coming out of T1 to drag this through to overtime, or is it going to be good night in round number 11?
Well, at least for the side of T1, and I wouldn't say FAV is the greatest opponent that they will and have gone against so far, so really take this with a grain of salt and pinch of salt, however the saying goes these days. I never know, but I think it's probably pretty safe to say for the side of T1 that, yes, they have improved on their last matchup. CAG was a very fierce opponent, 7-2, so they didn't really put a lot of rounds on the board. And then the game before that, against Talon, it was a 7-3. So I do think they are progressively getting better. Do I think the teams they're going up against are progressively getting worse? Yeah, as well. So maybe there is a secondary correlation here that's, you know, lowering my standards of analytics here when it comes to T1. But I just want to say something really good about them without turning around and saying it's all on 11. I do want to say as a squad, scoreline-wise, things are looking better than they have throughout the past few play days, at the very least.
I mean, the man's running a bang on 3.0 KD so far, and I'm pretty sure that qualifies him to be a caster if he'll be over 2.5. You are allowed to join the crew, apparently. Don't know what the rest of us are still doing here, but he could join if he wanted to at some point. Either way, it is on him. You are right. This needs to be a big round from 11 if they're going to keep this one going, I think, because sadly, across the board, no one else is pulling off these big heroic moments to shut FAV down and stop them in their tracks. If nothing else for 11, look at the silver lining on this one. You got a kill in the last round, and your team still lost the round, so now there's 2 rounds for you to recover, bounce back, and pick up more than the 18 kills you got now.
If your voice got any higher of a pitch, I was about to, like, just flip inside out and spontaneously combust. It's like those wine glasses
that would be a vision I would love to see. That created a really strange image in my mind that sounds hilarious, as it does scary and terrifying.
You said firstly you're going to shave off my eyebrows, and then you want to see me spontaneously combust? I have it all live. This is evidence, ladies and gentlemen. If I disappear, it's on Des.
I'm going to jail, ladies and gents. Goodbye. Farewell.
Well, we are possibly in the final round of T1 going up against FAV here on playday number 3 for APAC North. T1 has shown that they do have as much gusto as I expected them being under that particular organization, but it hasn't been enough for FAV, who has completely revitalized the way that they use their attacks, especially here in Oregon. They're usually very slow, but they've shown us that slowing down is not their prospects from now into the future.
Managed to blow through the shield and remove everything else that was there. The gadgets, I believe, that they tried to stack up to deny those nades coming through. 2 concussions backed up by the frags coming out of number 2 does clear out Attic, and now they can start thinking about the push forward once they've cleared out the Banshee that is currently present on Highway. So with that in mind, you now start focusing towards Master. You start thinking about opening up the walk-in wardrobe wall. We've already seen what 11 did earlier on when pushing through that wall once opened up. The damage that he did on site was unbelievable, but here the tables are flipped. It's going to be him stepping through potentially as a defender to come out and do what Afro did in the same round, try and pick up a couple of kills and try and neutralize things for your team.
Well, they will be able to slowly get this wall open. That will have enough range to get off those mute jammers. Nice. And Yeti can't really decide what he wants to do. He was lit up by that grenade. He wasn't sure if he could run away in time because someone might be rappelling on satellite window. So he just lays down next to the bridge. A bit of a rat move if you ask me. The ping will come out and the rat will be put to sleep. The poison works very well when you know exactly where the rats are hiding. And all of a sudden, these 45 seconds don't bode well for T1 if they want to stay in this matchup and at least push it to overtime and at least get that 1 point. They've got to start putting rounds on the board now.
I feel really sorry for him in that instance where you kind of have to run. Oh, he must know that someone's on Zulu. He must have just heard him. No. He heard him. He sees him. Down he goes. It looks like FAV are going to be able to close things out because 11 is also down. He'll be closing things out on 18 kills. 5 versus 1. Make it a flawless round to close. FAV with a very dominating second half. We asked questions about the attacking side of things for them. Today, it looked excellent.
Well, there you go. That is not a side of FAV I thought I would see in a very, very long time. I remember stage 2, I criticized them on Cafe for taking so long that I could have fallen asleep, taken a trip to Disneyland and come all the way back before they'd even made it onto site. Today, they've shown that they heard me last year and they have completely reformed the way they attack. In fact, they might be one of the fastest attacking teams in all of APAC North that currently exist.